What is good? It is your boy PvbloGrey, and we back with another video. And I don't know where I'm gonna put this in the category, but basically we gonna be speaking on the tree of life. Um, if you're not sure what that is, it's a very ancient teaching, older than what you might be subscribed to 9 times out of 10. Um, Basically just ancient Kemetic teaching, which I'm pretty sure is more, the teaching is more ancient than ancient Kemet, and Kemet is old, one of the oldest civilizations. But yeah, this dude explains it in a very nice way, a very good way. The reason why I decided to pick this video is because this dude speaks on this topic being within biblical scriptures. And if you know me, probably don't. I used to subscribe to Christianity. I don't anymore. But I am still a believer of God. Don't get that shit twisted. But and basically this man's just gonna get into it and basically explain what this stuff means in the most simplest way. So yeah, let's get into it, man.
Is very important when we talk about the angles of existence and how everything is based on mathematics and science. With that being said, the tree of life is
And you're gonna notice he's gonna be talking about mathematics and science, and he's gonna be basically, this is the book. I study this shit myself. I had this book for quite some time. This is what I study. In here you could see the diagram, basically what he had, and the tree of life basically symbolizes the different paths of your spiritual journey or your conscious journey. Um, and it has different meanings, because a lot of people, when they think of ancient Kemet and people who talk about Egypt, they think about people worshiping a bunch of fucking gods, and that's not the case. These gods that these people speak of just happen to be representations of the one true God, and meaning us, the world, the creator, all the different aspects, just like we are that, and an aspect of the creator. But y'all get it when he explains it. But let's get into it. Well, yeah, like, comment, subscribe if I ain't say that shit already.
referenced again, like we said before, several times. The very first time that you see a reference is in Genesis. Now it says here at Genesis 2 verse 9, and out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So by the very wording of what we are talking about here, there's a tree that's about knowledge, right? Of good and evil. So some people will read this because
And let's touch on that before he get on it. Good and evil. A lot of people think, okay, they had this tree, good and evil. You need to stay away from the evil and all of that shit. But like, you don't realize that everything comes with the opposite, because technically evil is just the name that is assigned to it. Evil is just the opposite of whatever mass or energy opposite of it. That is really all that is. Evil is just the opposite of what good is. If there was no label, you would just know this is opposite of this. You wouldn't know what necessarily good or evil is. You would just know one is different from the other. But that's a whole nother story. I think he kind of gets into that. But let's get back into it.
they're reading Genesis and they think it's about a literal man and a literal woman and a literal tree, they will take that literally. But I want to ask you guys this question. If somebody said this is a tree of wisdom and was writing about it and saying it was pleasant, would you go and try to find a tree of wisdom, or would you say, the metaphor of what wisdom is just like eating. It's like the more you eat, the better it is for you, right? So this tree of life this tree of life and this tree of the knowledge of good and evil are metaphorical, mystical concepts that are borrowed.
And I'm glad he said that. The whole reason I'm even getting into this is I'm gonna say shout out my homeboy Eroy for allowing me to go on my first psychedelic trip. I can't tell you how, which I don't recommend it, but through my psychedelic trip, it gave me a lot of downloads and realizations, and one of it is that life is really as simple as it is complicated. We then took these stories and made shit so complicated when really it's as simple as you just know, like, just think about it. You know, right now you couldn't go in the woods and talk to a snake, so there's no way it could really happen in our reality. So you would have to assume whatever existed, whatever is that book is talking about, didn't happen in your reality. So if that is the case, you would have to use it metaphorically. You would just have to learn from that situation. It's the same as any book. Although they're fictional tales that people come up with, you can still learn a lesson from a book that was made the fuck up. It's the same shit. I'm really hoping y'all understanding what I'm talking about here.
In the Hebrew Bible from different cultures, right, that already existed, and it's never mentioned again in Genesis. After the incident, it's never brought back up really in the Bible at all until you get to Revelation. Now, just to show you guys that this can be interpreted metaphorically, it is here in Revelation where it says, Revelation 22 verse 19, it says, if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God will take away that person's share in the tree of life and in the holy city, which are described in this book. Right? So, this tree of life, it says that a person can have a share in the tree of life, right? It doesn't say that you can, actually go to this literal tree and get a piece of fruit yourself, but it's saying that metaphorically speaking, because we're talking about, principles, and we're talking about, something mystical and metaphysical, that you can have a share in it, right? And even in Revelation again, Revelation 22 verse 2, it says, through the middle of the street of the city, on either side of the river is the tree of life, with its 12 kinds of fruit.
And right there, just saying on either side of the river is both sides of the tree of life. Just if you just didn't know that came from the Bible, when somebody said that to you, you would just assume that you're gonna get the same amount of whatever on each side. It's still the same amount of energy, just different energy. You get what I'm saying? Opposites.
Producing its fruit each month, and the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations, right? So when we have Revelation, which is interpreted as a vision, right, that has not been literally fulfilled yet, then we also are mentioning a tree that has 12 different kinds of fruit. What tree physically existing has 12 different kinds of fruit? There is no tree that does. But when we talk about the Sephiroth, if you add Doth to that, then we have 12 pieces of fruit. These are the fruits that are on the tree of life right here. Okay? So,
and if you don't understand what he means, this is what I was kind of trying to explain earlier about the geometrical shape and the sacred geometry behind this. He's saying if that this little circle right here is really two circles, because if it was a 3D model, it would be on the other side, right? And this is what I mean. So let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. comes to a little point, we can say that on the other side of this, there could be a point. Or on the other side of this. Let me make sure I'm not just bullshitting. I'm pretty sure it's 13 altogether. I ain't trying to just be talking on my ass. Yeah, I'm not about to skim through that just yet. Doing too much. But like a shape, just imagine that. Another point, another vertex.
Here. Okay. So, that I just wanted to just show you guys that God is the one that created the tree of knowledge and good and evil. Remember? So, every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, right? God made every tree. So how can God create something and then say that it is? How can God create something and then say that it is
Sorry,
wrong
we
for
had a
you
mess
to
up.
partake in it? Well, that is why we have to study Hebrew. Going back to good and evil, right? Because that phrase, that is literally translated in English as good and evil, is actually a literary device. For those of you who don't know what a literary device is it's basically when you put certain words together that are not literal to give a particular effect or some type of knowledge to the person reading it. So the Hebrew that is actually in Genesis, where it
Please
mentions
pay
the tree of
attention to
knowledge
this.
of
Please
good and
pay
evil,
attention.
is Tov Wa Ra. All right, that is how you say good and evil. Tov Wa Ra. So this may be an example of the type of figure of speech known as a merism, which is a literary device that pairs opposite terms together in order to create a general meaning, so that the phrase good and evil will simply imply everything. Now, to give you guys an example of this, like sometimes in English we'll say, tell me the truth, the good and the bad and the ugly, right? That when we're using words like that, it's not saying, literally tell me the ugly part and then the good part and then the bad part. It's saying, tell me everything so that I can be fully informed. So when we have a phrase like that together, good, evil, it can mean all things. And we see this before in the Egyptian expression evil good, which is isfet ma'at, which basically we use that in Medu Neter to mean everything. In the Greek literature, Homer also uses the device when he lets Telemachus say, I wish to know everything, the good and the evil, or the superior and the inferior, the up and the down, the left and the right, the male and the female, right? So that is a literary device. It's called a merism when we pair opposite terms together in order to create a meaning. So this tree of knowledge of good and evil just means that your eyes will be open, right? Because it said here, every.
And just think about it. Just think about this in the Bible. How wrong would it be if you just went like, all right, this is Bible excluded. If you went about life just not knowing evil existed, not saying that it doesn't exist, that motherfucker exists just as much as good exists. That much good, there's that much evil out there. Let's just say that is what's going on, and you just had no idea about it, and you was watching yourself. You was watching a version of yourself being clueless about evil. Do you really think that would be ideal? Come on. I don't think God would do would really be that rude, that cruel to its creations. You get what I'm saying?
Tree that is pleasant to the sight. So your eyes, it has to open up your eyes, right? Because it's giving you knowledge of good and evil. Now I want to break for a second and just show you guys the serpent, right? Because remember, it's a serpent talking to Eve.
And this the important part.
Right, so again, people literalize a snake talking to a woman. Instead of, being aware that this is a metaphor, everything in the story is pointing towards it being a metaphor.
And let's just take a moment to analyze this picture and what he just said. A snake talking to a woman, basically giving her all the info she wasn't supposed to have, right? Now you see how this snake is wandering through the tree of life, and you understand that the tree of life means knowledge, right? So this snake who is now speaking to Eve, giving her all the motherfucking knowledge after she, bit into the apple, telling her to bite into the apple and shit, the fruit, and learn what's been hidden from you, right? Y'all don't think there has been a plan put in place to make this shit evil information? Now you believe this snake deity represents the devil, and you shouldn't be knowing shit like that. And now this ancient teaching is now demonized, demonized. I can't think of a good word for it. Demonized. When this is not the fucking case. It's all metaphorical. And now there's really cultures out there that really hate women because they believe we wouldn't be living how we live if Eve didn't fuck up in the beginning. Out here really hating women like they not God. Come on, bro.
Or a mystical concept. But, for some reason, there is a part of, the powers that be that would like us to believe this is a literal story. That's another topic. But this is the serpent that spoke to Eve right here. So as you can see here, the serpent climbed the tree. Okay?
Again with the internet.
It being a metaphorical or a mystical concept. But, for some reason, there is a part of, the powers that be that would like us to believe this is a literal story. That's another topic. But this is the serpent that spoke to Eve right here. So as you can see here, the serpent climbed the tree. Okay, he crossed all the paths. All the paths he crossed over. And he climbed all the way to the top. The same thing is illustrated here on this diagram with the tree of life. And
y'all don't understand that a serpent is a very divine being. It really means like the highest, most meaning of consciousness. And not only that, like, man, think about it, man. These pharaohs, and it wasn't just pharaohs. It happened in the Americas too, where they used the cobra to represent the consciousness, man. Like, if you think about it, I'm pretty sure young Pharaoh explained it, that like the king cobra is like the only animal able to really, with no arms or legs, to raise itself to the height of a man. That's really an amazing thing. And imagine that metaphorically being your conscious. And that's what we got here.
What other tree do you know, when you wrap it, it looks just like that? A Christmas tree. And the star at the top of the tree is Malkuth. Is Kether, I'm sorry, not Malkuth. So this is the kingdom where you are, where the presents are.
I don't know what
This
he's talking
is the
about.
crown. This is heaven. So this is the serpent that's speaking to Eve, that's telling her if she eats from this tree, then she will have knowledge of good and bad, knowledge of everything.
And that's great. He made a great metaphor with the Christmas tree, because I didn't know that shit was related. But yeah, I'm really hoping you got a better understanding of what the tree of life is, the seed of life. Go get the book by Walter Ashby. I got it on Amazon. Go find that bad boy. It's a good book. It's a good read. Yeah, get you some knowledge, man, because this is some ancient teaching that's been taught in multiple cultures. Like I said, I really hope this broaden your consciousness. And if so, I'm glad I was a part of that. But yeah, man, you like what I'm doing here? Like, comment, subscribe, and share. I thank you. I appreciate it. Peace, love. Pablo out.